So the first thing that we want to talk about in this mini lecture is the economic theory of the firm. That is, how do economists think about the firm? And we're going to talk much more about this over the next couple of weeks. So this isn't going to be the only time we're going to talk about what the economic theory of the firm. But I wanted to introduce the way that economists think about the economic theory of the firm. So basically, economists believe that firms have one well-defined goal, and that goal is to maximize profits. So when we say that they have one well-defined goal, this is everything that firms do, economists believe they do so they can maximize their profits. Now, this of course is a simplification. It's complicated how firms behave, and it's complicated how humans behave, but as a first approximation, this seems a reasonable thing to do, and we'll talk about why that is a little bit in this lecture, and then we'll talk about it more in later mini lectures. So the first question is, maximize means make as big as possible, and so the next question is, what are profits? And the basic way we're going to think about profits is we're going to think about them as total revenue minus total cost. So total revenue minus total costs. In algebraic terms, we'd write this as pi for profits equals TR for total revenue and TC for total cost. So we're always going to denote profits with this letter pi. So whenever you see a pi written on the slides or on the board, you know that that means we're talking about profits. As you see, total revenue is TR for T for total, R for revenue, and total costs are TC, T for total, and C for cost. The question is, why don't we use P for profits? And the answer is, we don't use P for profits because we want to reserve the letter P to use for prices later on. So whenever we talk about it, we're going to use this Greek letter here, this pi that looks like a little Stonehenge. Okay, so whenever you see one of those, that's what it is. Okay, so now we've said what it is. It's just total revenue minus total costs. So the question now, of course, is, well, what's total revenue and what's total costs? So total revenue is the money that firms receive from others outside the firm. So money that's coming into the firm, and the way we'd think about this is money, for example, for selling goods and services, and that's basically how we're going to think about revenue in our simplified model of the firm. It's just the money you get from selling goods or services. It also would include other money that comes into the firm, but we're not thinking about this at the moment. We're going to focus on this money from selling goods and services. So total revenue is the money that comes in. So what are total costs? That's the money that goes out. So it's anytime the firm pays money to anybody who's not the firm. So for example, it's going to be wages paid to the workers, and this would include if the owner works for the firm and is paid a wage, that would be included too. The owner's considered someone outside the firm, so the money would go from the firm to the owner of the firm, and that's money leaving the firm going to the owner. So that would be part of the wages, for example, or salaries if the owner earns a salary. Rent and interest payments paid to the owners of capital. Payments to suppliers for raw materials. So if you're a car company, you need to buy glass and steel and radios to make your cars, and that's raw materials is the glass and steel. The radio would be an intermediate input, and then it's really any other money that goes out of the firm. So revenue is the money that comes into the firm from outside the firm. So for example, if I as a customer go and buy a Big Mac, that's revenue for them. And costs are the money that goes out for the firm. So it's the cost of the beef to make the Big Mac, the cost of the bun to make the Big Mac, the cost of the wages to the worker, and then any rent on the store, for example, if they don't own the land. Okay, so what is profits then? It's the money that's left over after the firm has paid all its bills. So we subtract the money leaving the firm from the money coming into the firm. So total revenue is the money coming in minus the total cost, which is money going out. So it's kind of the money left over. And so this kind of gives us a clue about why profit maximization is attractive. The question you want to ask is, well, what happens to this money? And it's left over. Everyone's being paid that needs to be paid. So you paid your electricity bills, you paid your taxes, you paid your workers, you paid your suppliers. And so the the firm's owners can essentially choose to do whatever they want with the profits. Now they may delegate this to a manager, but it's the owners who are essentially the people who we imagine are making these decisions. So the owner could do a lot of things with it. One thing they could do is they could take those profits and pay them out to themselves. If it's a big firm, they'd pay them out as dividends to shareholders, for example. Another thing the owners might decide to do is they might decide, well, rather than take the money out now, I'm going to reinvest them. And the goal would be to increase future profits. So you don't take the money out now, you reinvest it in the firm, and then you take it out later. Or the owner could just spend it on perks such as company jets, lavish office space, beautiful artwork, these kind of things. Maybe have a big party with famous people paid to attend. So whatever they want, they can do with it money. But basically, this is money that goes to the owner. So what profit maximization means, it means in the long run, the owners want to earn as much as they possibly can from the firm. And this kind of makes sense if you assume that owners like earning as much money as possible. And money isn't the only thing that causes happiness, but money certainly does cause happiness for a lot of people. So if you ask yourself, would you rather have no money or more money or even more money, you'd probably want more money. So as a first approximation to how people behave, this might be a reasonable assumption. And we'll talk more about this later. So that's it for profit maximization. Next mini lecture we'll talk about revenues and costs and how we calculate these things.